Hello everyone, welcome back. Okay. And thanks for joining me today. Oh dear. Okay, good, that piece is long enough. Just kind of carrying up and then back down to avoid closing in stitches. Quite a lot of this white here. Yeah, extends quite a bit. But I'm just gonna break it up a bit. Sometimes I'll stitch a big section across multiple diagonals. Kind of depends on the mood I'm in. Yeah, I have another project going where the first couple of pages are mostly one color, and so I basically outlined it, and then I'm going to fill that bit in, which goes across several columns at once. And I'm feathering my edge here, so I'm actually going past, even though it will close these stitches in, just so that I don't potentially make a line on my work. So sometimes I break my own guidelines. All right, I don't have very many left. In fact, I think I'm just gonna park this down here. Yeah. There. And then that means we kind of meet in the middle here with this thread. Okay, I'm gonna go one more past, just because again, I care more about not potentially leaving a line. Okay, oops. Let's see if this piece is long enough to travel or not. Yeah, that is. Okay, which means I'm gonna want to fill in this other stuff first, because I prefer not to close in stitches when I can avoid doing it. Okay. So we're back to a bit more confetti here, because we're back to the bridge instead of the sky. There we go. Okay, I think I'm gonna have more than one thread for this area, yeah. Oops, just because of the way the colors go on the pattern. Let's see. So I may finish this diagonal today. That'd be cool. Couple more to do before I move my frame again and update with another picture. Now that I'm past that halfway mark. Oh dear. Oh, come on. Why are you doing that? There. Wanted to make a knot, which we do not want. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I like really bad jokes. People call them dad jokes, but my friends say they call them Gemma jokes because they know how much I like them. They will often tag me in them or post them on my timeline for me. So my absolute favorite joke says, sometimes I like to curl in a ball and lean forward because that's how I roll. Yes, I know, it's very, very bad. The more dreadful, the better. It's funny, I always said, you know, why do we groan at plays on words? Some of them are actually quite clever, but for some reason, they make us groan. Well, let's see if I can finish these with this little bit of thread. I think I can. 3, 2, 1. Oh, perfect. I love when it works out like that. Yeah, so there's the piece I had left. Maybe an inch long. I definitely didn't waste any. My goodness, I have a lot of little bits of this color left. Oh, pardon me. Yeah, I think in fact I'm going to use separate tiny pieces for these stitches because I really don't want to create any more little trimmed bits. I have so many right now, so I will use a couple of them up when I get to them, of course. There we go. Okay, make sure I'm parking this under the correct thread. So I was parking it based on other threads there. Don't want to do that wrong. Okay. Oops, there we go. Oh, might be able to pick that apart a little easier if I use the point of the needle and not the eye. There, perfect. Don't know how that got a knot in it already. Glad I found it before I started stitching. Oh, my goodness. I'm just tangling myself up today. It's just the two. Okay. Okay. Well, this is another one I may use two separate little pieces up, since it's either those two little pieces or one big long piece, so yeah, because these two of this color are not very close together, so I don't think pardon me, I don't think this piece of thread will extend far enough to do that second one. It's out of the diagonal. Yeah, that's too short. can tuck away. Okay, yeah. I'm going to do another piece. So I'm probably going to leave those end symbol stitches. They're right on the line, so I'll leave them for the next diagonal. It's pulling out two at once. Yeah. Learned the hard way early on, don't do that. Pull out one strand at a time, even if you need more than one strand. Or it will snarl on you. Pull one at a time, and if you're using multiple threads, then you group them back together afterwards after you've held them up and let them sort of untwist. Then you don't get knots as easily. Another tip that I read to help avoid knots is, if you were using multiple threads and not the loop start, is if you pulled out two threads, you actually put them opposite. So the one end that came out of the hank on one side and then the other end on the other side, and apparently they're less likely to tangle that way, especially if you have any kinks in your floss. So I don't do that often, as I use loop starts most of the time, but when I have, sometimes I don't use a loop start. I've tried that and it does seem to tangle a little less. So of course, still going to happen sometimes no matter how careful you are. Oh, yeah. I also found certain colors tangle more. I thought maybe it was just me, but I asked one of my friends who is also a stitcher, and she said, yeah, she noticed 436 seems to be a culprit. That light tan color. I don't know, maybe it's something to do with the dyeing process of the floss. And they use different chemical compositions for the dye. So yeah, kind of interesting. I know there's a few colors too that DMC changed their dyeing process slightly to make it more environmentally friendly. But that means you have to definitely watch out, because you're more likely to get dye lot issues that way. So yeah, I like to buy all the thread that I'm planning to use on a project at the same time, and to avoid dye lot issues. One tip that I heard about that too is, if you do have ones that appear to have slight variance in color because of dye lot issues, if you're using multiple strands, you can use, like if you're using two strands, use one of the old one and one of the new one, and that can help blend the colors so that it's not noticeable, especially if it's bigger sections of color. Yeah, it's been pretty heartbreaking. I've seen where some people had like a sky and there's a visible change where the dye lot changed, and so then they have to either go back and pull it out and redo it with all new, or I've seen some people abandon a project that they've put so many hours into, which is just devastating. So okay, color to end off. So that other right V stitch is down here, so I'm going to go back over to the left and work my way over to it. Oh, this thread is not even. One strand is not lying flat to the material. Okay, I think I caught there's a bit of a loop there. Now it's been removed. It should be good now. Yes, that's better. I don't want a loose stitch later that I have to go and fix. Yeah, tablet is starting to get a little slow. I may treat myself to a new one for my birthday. I might even upgrade to a 10-inch screen. This is an 8-inch screen, so, which is definitely still pretty good, especially since you can zoom in on these. Another knot. Okay. Seems to be a day for using up little pieces. Oh, my goodness. So sometimes the length of thread I decide to use just depends on what I have available. Oh, gee. Yeah. Trying to thread along the back, but my needle was coming up to the front. That will not work. Definitely don't want those ends coming up to the right side. All right, this piece was only probably long enough to do the stitch that it is parked in. Yeah, that was my plan. So slowly starting to thin out these threads as I either finish them off or park them in the next section to be used later. Right, and we were working our way back to that V-stitch, right, okay. Which means quite a lot of going down over to the left here. Further and further. Oh, just threaded it and then unthreaded it. Whoops. Okay, a lot of this color. I'm definitely going to end up with more than one thread. I can tell Not already. Yeah, make sure I'm in the right place. Oop. That was really uneven. Can't make a loop start properly with such uneven threads. That fluffy piece just there. Yeah, I don't know why it takes one pull of a thread to get the end to pop through to the front, but like a dozen to get it to go back. Oh, it's so irritating. Got a piece of pet hair stuck in there. Find my tweezers. Nope. Did I get it? Yeah, looks like I did actually. Good. Yeah, harder to grip with your fingernails than with the tweezers, so that's why I like to keep them nearby for. Also, for when I have really bad knots, I like to hold the thread while I pick at the knot so it doesn't pull and distort the holes in my fabric. For the really stubborn knots. That works quite well. Okay, so now I finally worked my way back to that V stitch. I can do those without closing anything in. Okay, I'm just gonna unthread that because, yeah, getting those apart while still threaded was going to be more trouble than just rethreading it afterwards. Oh, goodness. Couldn't find where the right spot was. Oh, surprised I left that one threaded when it's such a short piece. I usually don't do that. Usually it won't stay threaded when I try to pull it back out, but this time it did, so it all worked out. Or sometimes I will leave a really short piece threaded if I'm only having to drop that needle for like 1 or 2 stitches and then get back to it. But this one was sitting there for a while. So, well, like I've said before in previous videos, these are just guidelines, not rules. All right. Okay, I'm going to see if this one is still threaded or not. Oh, it was, but now it's not. So you know what? I'm going to tuck that all away. Yeah. All of these are going to be tucked away for the next diagonal. Gotta thin out how many needles I've got here before I get myself into a mess of a tangle. Oh. That one went down a little funny. My goodness. Yeah, I'm gonna tie that one off. Too short to carry. Yeah, time to reset. I had quite a few on there. Okay. Oh my goodness. There. I actually liked untangling things when I was a kid. Undoing knots and untangling things. It was like doing a puzzle. My mom's necklaces sometimes would get really tangled in the jewelry box, and I liked sitting there and figuring out how to get them apart without breaking anything. I'm on Ravelry, which is like a social networking website for knitters and crocheters, which I highly recommend if you do either of those hobbies. It's a great database. They have lots of free patterns and forums, and you can look at other people's projects and they'll make notes of changes they made to the pattern, things like that. You can ask more experienced knitters or crocheters questions, and someone's almost always more than happy to help you. Crafty people are some of the best people, right? Yeah. And anyway, there was a group on there of people who like to untangle yarn. And so you could actually ship your yarn to them and they would untangle it for you and ship it back at no cost. So a lot of people would often send like a little treat along with the tangled yarn, like some chocolates or a book or something, which was really nice. And then, yeah, so people who liked to untangle stuff could do it for people who did not like to untangle stuff. It was a neat idea. I never used it myself because I like untangling. And also I'm in Canada, so the shipping back and forth really doesn't, our shipping is ridiculously high. It costs me less to ship something across the border to the States on the opposite coast than it costs for me to send something to relatives in the next province. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So a lot of times you'll order stuff, especially if it's not in country, but even in country, sometimes the shipping will cost more than the object that you actually bought. Yeah, so that is one thing that I really wish we could improve. Our postal service is extremely expensive, and it's pretty slow too in comparison. Okay. So I think I'm going to wrap up for the day pretty soon. Okay, I'm trying to decide. Should take that needle out of my mouth. Such a bad habit, I know. I shouldn't hold a needle between my teeth, but I think we all do it, hey? I broke myself of the habit of licking on my thread to thread it in the needle, but the occasionally holding a needle between my teeth is one I seem to not be able to break myself of doing. And I know I should. I've heard horror stories of people accidentally biting the needle in half and inhaling part of it, which you definitely don't want to do. So been trying to get myself to put the needles on the magnets instead of holding it in my mouth, but I think I don't do it as often as I used to, but I still do it. I remember once when I was in high school and I brought my cross-stitching to a friend's house, and her little sister said, "Why are you holding a needle in your mouth?" And I said, "Well, because I don't have 3 hands." Yeah, that was back when I was still stitching kits and not full coverage pieces. And I was much slower at it then. Still have those though. I have a couple of angel pieces. It was made by Dimensions, I believe. Yeah. One's holding a candle, one's holding a wreath, one's flying to the right, one's flying to the left, and yeah. They're technically Christmas angels, but I keep them up year-round because, hey, I worked hard on them. Right? I am not willing to only display them for a month out of the year. Come on, my goodness. Being very stubborn. Yeah, that's why I haven't done a full coverage Christmas piece. There are some gorgeous ones out there, but I mean, you put years sometimes into some of these pieces, and yeah, I wouldn't be willing to only display them in December. I like looking at other people's projects though. All right, so I think I will be about to call it a day, and I thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you here next time. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.